What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Fast. Today, let's get started with Henry Cejudo feels Joaquin Buckley can finish Colby Covington. Colby Covington will be facing Joaquin Buckley in December, and one former UFC champion believes a particular scenario could very well occur on fight night. This will be the biggest test in the pro MMA career of Buckley. He passed his recent test with flying colors, knocking out Stephen Thompson back in October. He'll have a quick turnaround when he meets Covington at UFC Tampa on December 14th. Former two-division UFC champion Henry Cejudo took to the Pound for Pound podcast to share his belief that Joaquin Buckley can put Colby Covington away when the two collide next month. The style that Colby Covington is doing is so predictable now. The fact that they see him lose time and time again, whether it's with Leon or Kamaru, it's there. Once you stop Colby's takedowns, things will fall into place. Look at how Joaquin covers distance, double feints, dipping in to eventually stop a dude like Wonderboy. I can see Colby Covington losing via stoppage to a guy like Joaquin Buckley, and I truly do believe that. Daniel Cormier all for Michael Chandler's call-out of Conor McGregor after UFC 309. Daniel Cormier thinks Michael Chandler is smart for going after Conor McGregor again. Chandler called out McGregor after suffering a dominant decision loss to Charles Oliveira in Saturday's UFC 309 co-main event at Madison Square Garden. Despite now coming off back-to-back losses to Dustin and Charles, Cormier doesn't see Chandler's chances of getting his fight with McGregor rebooked decreasing. In fact, he thinks it strengthens his case. I said this before the fight. I thought Chandler had a better chance of getting the McGregor fight if he lost. He lost that fight. He showed that you can hurt him, but he also showed how tough and durable he is. Michael Chandler doesn't need to win all the time. He's past that, in terms of who he is as a fighter. He once again won, even though he lost. He'll get the McGregor fight, and it's going to be massive, and I'm all for it. Chael Sonnen holds Bo Nickal's team accountable for lackluster UFC 309 win. Chael Sonnen is not happy with Bo Nickal's performance at UFC 309. Nickal remained unbeaten when he outstruck Paul Craig in Saturday's main card at Madison Square Garden. Despite sweeping the scorecards, Nickal was met with boos by the crowd and a chant of overrated. Sonnen thinks Nickal looked composed, but was irked with how little activity took place in the fight. He wasn't a fan of his game plan, in which Nickal didn't attempt a single takedown. My problem with it and my gripe is that you have a four-time world champion. One of his trainers or his training partners sat him down and said, "You're not ready to go to the ground with the guy." Sonnen puts the responsibility on Nickal's corner for not encouraging him to play to his strengths and pointed to GSP as an example of someone who never strayed away from his game plan. You do not look at your opponent's game to decide your strategy. That is nothing that Bo has ever done. He didn't show Gabe Dean that respect. He didn't show Miles Martin that respect. He did not show David Taylor that respect. And he refuses to take down. A four-time world champion refuses to use one bit of wrestling against a guy that's never had a wrestling match. That is because of somebody in his trusted inner circle. Francis Ngannou interested in restarting talks with Deontay Wilder after recent call-out. PFL heavyweight star Francis Ngannou is down to face Deontay Wilder in the boxing ring. Back for the first time since being knocked out by Anthony Joshua in March, Francis Ngannou faced Renan Ferreira in the PFL. Following the victory, Francis Ngannou revealed plans to return next spring. Well, when the PFL heavyweight returns, he could be facing former heavyweight boxing champion Deontay Wilder. Earlier this month, Deontay Wilder called for a future fight with Francis Ngannou. The two were previously in discussions to fight in 2023, but Francis instead signed a deal to face Tyson Fury. Speaking in a recent interview, Francis responded to Deontay. There, Ngannou showed interest in renewing talks with the former boxing champion. However, Ngannou added that he's unsure if he will compete in the PFL next, or head back to the ring. Yes, I mean, since we spoke, nothing has changed. In my vision, if I only have a couple of fights left, I would like that to be one of them. No, I may not compete in boxing next. I'm going to wait a couple of months to see if the PFL pulls something up. If not, I will see if there's something in boxing. But it's not like it's at the top of my mind. I know I can do each of them in the future. Michael Page declares himself the best striker in UFC, ahead of potential Shara Magomedov showdown. The UFC might be gearing up for an electrifying showdown, as rumors swirl about a potential fight between Michael Page and Shara Magomedov in Saudi Arabia early next year. Known for his flashy style and knockout power, Page is already taking the fight to Magomedov and making his presence felt. The British striker has confidently declared himself the best striker in the UFC. In an exclusive interview, Page shared his thoughts on what excites him about a fight with Magomedov's and why he is a dangerous opponent for anyone. He came off a very spectacular win. I rate his striking. He called out my boy. I was like, leave my guy alone, I'll handle this. I just think it is a great fight. It is most likely going to be a striking fight, and I see myself as the best striker in the UFC. The UFC returns to Saudi Arabia on February 1st, 2025. It will be interesting to see if Magomedov versus Page is booked for that card as rumors suggest. But if not Page, Magomedov is still fighting on that card. After all, according to UFC CEO Dana White, he's every promoter's dream fighter. Kamaru Usman has low expectations for Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Machado Garry. Kamaru Usman isn't confident that Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Garry will deliver action at UFC 310. Rakhmonov takes on Garry in a 5-round welterweight co-main event December 7 at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Despite Rakhmonov boasting a 100% finish rate, Usman thinks Garry's recent performances won't result in the exciting matchup everyone is projecting. I like the matchup, but we have a tendency to get excited for these Garry matchups, and they don't turn out the way we think. I'm being honest. Did I not say the same thing about the Michael Page fight? It's just the way that Garry likes to fight. Garry is a guy that loves space. He loves to make it look pretty. He loves to run off his combinations and move. I think it's a good fight. Shavkat is going to come forward. He's going to try to seek and destroy as he always does, and Garry is going to move around to create the space, to try to find the good strikes. So, it's a good fight on paper. I don't know how it's going to look on fight night. It's an intriguing fight because there's a little bit of backstory. So I think it's going to make for a little bit more animosity as we get closer to the fight, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's not the most electrifying fight that we've ever seen like we're expecting. Tom Aspinall highlights one clear disadvantage Jon Jones would have against him. Tom Aspinall thinks UFC heavyweight champion Jon Jones would have a hard time preparing for him. Jones prides himself on being great at studying tape and breaking down opponents, but based on Aspinall's fight time in the octagon, the interim champ believes Jones won't have much to look at, and that's a clear disadvantage. He loves to study opponents like this. He has no chance of doing that with me because my average fight time is the shortest in UFC history, all 10 fights, and that's something that keeps him up at night. That will keep him up at night for sure. I am a massive question mark for him, and I know a lot of his game. He's got a lot of octagon time over a lot of years, and I've got next to nothing, next to no footage of me. He has no idea what to prepare for, and that is fantastic for me. Jon Jones pens heartwarming message sharing, one of the most powerful lessons he learned on International Men's Day. Jon Jones recently shared a touching letter for International Men's Day, expressing one of the most profound lessons he's learned in his life. Jones emphasized that all men experiencing difficulties in their lives should not be afraid to speak up with their friends and family. In a recent X post, Jones voiced his support for all men who are going through difficult times in their lives. The reigning champion advised people to speak up about their struggles, share them with everyone, and not give up. One of the most powerful lessons I've learned is that there's real strength in asking for help. It takes courage to speak up when things aren't okay, but that courage can change everything. To all the men out there, keep your heads up. Life is tough, and some days or even years will feel unbelievably heavy. But remember, nothing stays dark forever. The sun rises, and there's always light waiting at the end of the tunnel. Good things do come, even if they take time. So stay in the fight. You owe it to yourself and to the people who care about you. The world needs you here.